Pakistan, anti-government protesters clashed with police today in the capital, Islamabad. The protesters have been demanding the resignation of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif for over 2 weeks, but over the last few days have faced a renewed military presence on the streets. In a massive show of force, yesterday thousands of Pakistanis marched through the city to Sharif's residence. Amid the violence, Sharif's government said it was trying to restart talks for a negotiated solution.
Ahead of NATO's military summit this week in Wales, today anti-NATO protesters are holding their own summit. The Welsh capital of Cardiff is hosting talks from political activists from all over the world, while yesterday hundreds of protesters marched to the nearby city of Newport, demanding NATO end its expansion into Eastern Europe. Larger protests are expected later in the week.
Today, Gaza is enjoying its 5th full day without violence as a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel holds. The Israeli government has estimated it spent $2.5 billion on its assault on Gaza, while Gazan authorities say Israeli forces inflicted at least $6 billion worth of damage on infrastructure, homes, and businesses. Humanitarian organizations estimate it could take 2 decades for Gaza to recover. For more, we go to Telesur's Noor Harazin in Gaza.
2 Palestinians succumbed to wounds that they sustained during the Israeli war on Gaza, bringing the total Palestinian death toll in the 51-day Israeli Protective Edge operation up to 2,155. Meanwhile, life is back to the streets of the coastal enclave, with Palestinians continuing to enjoy days of ceasefire, concerned though that each day could be the last peaceful one before an escalation. I feel so relieved that now we are able to safely leave our homes, but deep in our hearts we are still scared, as back in 2009 and 2012 the Israeli side violated the truce, dragging us into a new escalation, and this is something that we don't want it to happen. For security reasons, farmers in the Gaza Strip were not able to go or take care of their farms during the Israeli offensive on Gaza. It has meant that residents have been left with few and old vegetables. However, the boxes and shelves are now loaded with vegetables in the markets of Gaza after 7 weeks of being empty.
Finally, I am able to buy my family some good food. During the war, we were feeding on canned meat and vegetables. I can't wait to get back home to surprise my children with the new bags with fruits, vegetables, and fresh meat.
If you walk in the streets of central Gaza, you will also notice the huge number of people buying new clothes and housing goods. Unfortunately, it is not because they want to enjoy shopping or buy something new, but because they lost everything in the Israeli ground invasion. Creating a new life is their only way to survive the suffering in Gaza.
As life returns back to the Gaza Strip, thousands of Palestinian families are left homeless, waiting on the international community to intervene and offer them a new shelter and a new life. Noor Harazin, Telesu TV, Gaza.
The European Union has issued an ultimatum to Russia today, warning it will impose new sanctions in a week if Moscow doesn't change its stance on Ukraine. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko has accused Russian troops of crossing the border to fight alongside rebel forces, though Moscow denies this. Today, Russian President Vladimir Putin said it's impossible to know when the conflict in Ukraine could end, but urged Poroshenko to restart sincere peace talks with the rebels.
Would be point of non-return.
In a visit to Buenos Aires to explain and promote awareness on Bolivia's 100-year-old struggle, former President Carlos Mesa emphasized the need for peaceful dialogue between his country and Chile in search of a definitive agreement.
Bolivia requests that the International Court of Justice obligates Chile to sit down and negotiate with Bolivia to find a solution. Based on what? Based on the existing international jurisprudence that establishes that formal, serious written commitments that a country does with another are commitments which are legally enforceable internationally.
Following Bolivia's complaint at The Hague in 2013, Chile has since questioned the competence of the International Court in the matter, saying that the issue was settled in a 1904 treaty. Bolivia says that the privatization of the ports that Chile employs to handle Bolivian cargo does not comply with the treaty and demands the removal of Chile as a middleman.
What we are demanding is sovereign access to sea, which does not define or determine a large surface area, and therefore the approach is nothing earth-shattering in terms of what we are asking for.
The majority of the Bolivian community in Argentina supports Bolivia's complaint.
I think it's perfect that this issue has been taken to The Hague, as we are exhausting all means in a peaceful manner. I think that we have to go through all peaceful means. We lost 400 kilometers of our coastline, and we are asking for less than that. Hopefully Chileans will understand our claim.
A resolution to the matter would benefit both nations immensely, settling a historical bilateral problem for good, and in terms of energy cooperation, as Bolivia would start supplying its natural gas to energy-poor Chile, which would mean a new and important source of income to its economy. From Buenos Aires, Leonel Político Duty, Telesur.
Margarita Murillo was a campesino leader of the north region of Honduras. This week she was violently murdered by 3 heavily armed men that are still not identified. This crime is part of a long list of political assassinations against members of the popular resistance in Honduras.
Margarita Murillo never quit the struggle for the land. After the coup d'etat, she was the first coordinator of the National Front of Popular Resistance in the department of Cortés, where she lived and where she was killed.
Campesinos, lawyers, and journalists have been the principal victims of violent murders in these past 5 years.
The crime against Margarita Murillo is not an isolated crime. It is a product of the struggle she had socially and politically. This is a political crime. The situation of the popular leadership is a situation of threats, persecution, intimidation, and murder.
The average of impunity in campesino murders is even higher than the national rate of 95% in general crimes. It's highly probable that Murillo's murders may remain unpunished. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
Facts that have marked the course of history. Productions designed in the English language and made for the English-speaking world. This is Documentary. Watch it on telesur.net/English. Telesur, wherever the news, you'll be there.